Namaste and welcome to Wise Out Career Guide. Today we have Dr. J. Rajmohan Pillai with us, who's the chairman of Beta Group, and his journey is something that should be an inspiration for anybody who feels even a slightest bit of pressure or finds life even difficult for a day. Let's hear from him about his journey and how he has managed to reach where he is today.
So, welcome to our channel and thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, Usually we start the conversation with asking about the educational background of the person who's joined us. But in your case, I think the first question I want to ask is how and when did your career journey start?
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks for having me. I think my technically learning on business started when I was 14 because I was making telephone calls for my father, going for his
Mhm.
meetings, getting to order the food for his the friends and everybody. But all the time, you knowingly or unknowingly keep hearing all the business that is actually happening and what
Right,
happens. So you can actually come to know how the conclusion is even without learning, without
right,
trying to learn. So you are doing it, you get a lot of good food and everything, so you do it with happiness. But all that is, but unfortunately, I had to come physically into business when I was 18 because my father had a major loss and he had a very large heart attack where it was a multiple heart attack and I had to be taken to Bombay. So I had to
oh,
actually come into his seat to try to manage. So that is
okay.
when my physical thing started, when I couldn't go to studies on a regular basis because there was so much of problems and so many things to do.
Right.
That is how it actually.
So, after you started at 18, what was it that you started with, and how has the journey been?
Yeah, I think the journey has been extremely good if you because you're asking me at this point of time. If you had,
Right.
it all depends on which point of time that you asked me this question. So that is what it will be. But the basic thing is it's been extremely exciting for me because
Hmm.
even though there was a huge liability that was given, there was an education given on this whole business, which with which you could actually work out how to pay the liability, even though it looked impossible at a particular point of time. There was
Right.
a solution within that problem. So the solution was given by the same person from whom I inherited the problem. So
Okay.
it was living that solution that was the process that I have actually gone through.
So, sir, people start their career journey thinking of, how much they're gonna add into their, asset side or bank balance. You started with a huge liability. So, how did you, in a mental pressure space, how did you manage that?
Neha, I think that you're talking about the present generation, including your generation. All the
Absolutely.
people who have actually passed like 70 or 80, they have all gone through huge difficulties, including the wars that we had to have, rations that we had to have. They would be lucky if there was one person in the family who was in a government service. And the wages that they used to get and everything was so minuscule that they couldn't even meet and ends meet. Many people had liabilities. So that is kind of that I had just missed the generation while coming into my life because I was born in 1964. That
Right.
I just missed it by the time I knew about it, but I kept on hearing stories about all this. There were salaries were 3 rupees from the government. If you were
Right.
a month, so if you were otherwise, you were working at 25 pies or something like that, which was ridiculous. But like a lot of farmers who would had to go every day and work and bring, had to take loans. So this was a process that was going through. I, at a particular point of time, thought I was unfortunate because all my cousins, everybody started off on a much better wicket because they had so
Right.
much of positive, and they were, like you said, adding on to it. And I was thinking I was always on a 100-meter race with a 10-kilogram weight on my leg and trying to compete with the whole. But I really believe that everybody is given circumstances, everybody is challenged in different ways, whether it is physical, whether it is mental, whether it is by relationships, whether it is in workplace, whether it is in family life. The challenges are plenty. So if you are able to take the challenges, address it, and go forward, over a period of time, you will become much more stronger than your peers. If you
Right.
circumvent to that, then it becomes a problem. And that you can actually have problems throughout your life. And it
Absolutely.
could be the smallest thing, that it could be a fall from the second step that kills you. And from an aircraft, you might fall down and you might just live. So the
Absolutely.
possibility, it is nothing to do with the quantum of problems. It is what that actually kills you or what actually saves you. So that is how life is designed. Um, um, uh, I knew the theory because that was one of the things my father said, because my father was a very poor man. So he had studied in the street lights and he was actually working for his uncle. So he had gone. So he said that I did not bring anything. I'm sorry, I'm giving you liabilities. But when I came in, I didn't know what will happen to me. Unless you have the same philosophy in life, you will not be able to go through. It took a long time for me to understand it because every time you keep blaming, that is the normal procedure. You blame
Mhm.
somebody, but I didn't even have time to blame because there were so many people on the in the house and in the office asking for money, and so it was a continuous process. So my mind did not even have time to blame somebody for all the problems and everything. There were calls coming at 4 o'clock in the morning, or all these things. But over a period of time, you kind of build strengths to understand. There were people who I had to give 1 crore of rupees where I could give only 10,000 rupees, which was not even
Oh my.
enough for the interest. And they would say, "What are you going to do?" I said, "You can actually kill me or take this 10,000. That is all that I have." So that was the
Right.
luckily, over a period of time, people got convinced. Not only that they got convinced, they were giving me more loans and more things, which was very surprising. I thought,
Mhm.
I used to think, why are they supporting me when there is so much of liability on the other side with me? But that is how people are. People are basically nice if you are able to show an interest and they support you.
Right.
That is how the whole ecosystem is. It is when you don't try that they have a problem, or when you try running away from the problem. So it's critical that you look into the tiger's eye when it is in front of you and face
Right.
it. So that is very important.
So you also managed to find, in so much of chaos and pressure, a space for yourself with your tennis. How did that come about?
Oh, I play a lot of tennis. I write books. These are two things that I do.
Okay.
It's quite interesting because when you are actually working, there is a lot of free time. Like imagine that you're going for a meeting in New York.
Right.
The meeting is 2 hours time. You're flying for like 21 hours, both sides, that is 42 hours. You invariably have to go the day before because if your meeting is at 10 o'clock, your flight is landing in the evening or whatever it is. And you have to stay one more day and then come back. So the for a 2 hour trip, 2 hour meeting, you're
Meeting.
actually spending close to about 48 or 50 hours.
Right.
So what do you do? How do you occupy that other 48 hours even after your sleep is the challenge. It's actually a challenge for most of the people. A lot of people get into drinking or they get into sightseeing and they occupy the space with friends and everything. I was a very insecure person, so I could do things only with myself. I didn't have too many people as friends to be able to spend time. I did not know what I could actually talk, because the main thing for me was paying liabilities and things. So that was not something that was exciting for most people, or any of them. So did not bring that up. So playing tennis was something that you could do with even, and when you're good, people call you to play
Right.
with you. Or writing a book or writing a concept or whatever it is was something that you could do it on your own, even on a flight or coming back and everything. So that those are exciting things. So that is how tennis. So even when I had huge liabilities, I would go to the club at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because I didn't have anything to do, and play tennis. And everybody around me, including the bankers, would say, "Oh, this guy has so much of liabilities and still coming and playing tennis." And what they actually believe is, if you have liabilities, you will be seen in the bar. That is
Okay.
acceptable combinations
Yes.
in that. When I would spend much lesser money on tennis. And like tennis, you get the ball free, you get your rackets, you can use your, and virtually no expense, and this time still gets filled with something which is a good activity. It's not something that people actually understand, or
Yeah.
spend time in your yoga and all those things, is something that people did not understand. But all of that helped me in the future. I'm glad I didn't get into the bar, or I didn't get into other things, because over a
Absolutely.
period of time, all of it actually helped. And unknowingly, this tennis was a winding down process from all the other tension. So you could
Right.
actually get into something. It was like a meditation, to get into something else, to concentrate on something else other than your basic problem. And it also made the body tired for you to sleep well in the night.
Right.
So those are processes that I came to know about later than when I actually was doing it. Or
Okay.
unconsciously, I was doing it so that I could get all these benefits.
Right. So, sir, with so much of pressure, so many things happening around you, you've still managed to get a doctorate. How did that process happen for you?
And it is because of the pressures that I got the doctorate. If
Okay.
it was not so, like, none of my cousins, none of the other peers have even tried, because I think that, and especially people who were rank holders, who were comfortable, they actually slow down at some point of time, like 35 or 36 and 37. They've done something,
Right.
they kind of map their career and they think everything is okay. I never had a chance to slow down. So it was a constant process. But more than that, I think that every time an opportunity came, I tried to take it and make use of it, compared to not take an opportunity. So when there was an
Okay.
opportunity to write about an industry that I was in, the cashew industry, and to write a world economy of the industry, it was part of my work as well as an education, to kind of a research for my work. And then when
Right.
I started searching for universities to find out who can, because I had only had a graduation degree, most of them needed a PhD for me to file. So once I started talking, everybody understood that they should actually be giving doctorates to people of knowledge compared to the PhD. But they were
Right.
structurally difficult. But when I sent them my book, which is as a thesis written, everybody was so impressed and everything. So that made the very, very big. So those are kind of things that has actually helped. And all of it, including when I was studying, one of the biggest advantages, I was studying commerce. And when I was doing my work, everything that I studied was something that I was using. So I
Right.
was a much more inquisitive student than most of my peers, because I had actual, like when I was taking a company law class, I had 50 questions. Because there were 50 legal cases on the other side. And these
Right.
are all appropriate questions. And for most of it, the teacher did not even know
The
what
answer
he
for.
was teaching and what a practical thing that he was teaching. And most of the time, that is what happened. So they thought that I was being nasty to them. I was being bad to them as a student. So the teachers who said they will not teach if you are in the class. I was on a survival trip. I was asking questions just to know. I thought this was the cheapest way to get an answer.
Yeah.
So that was a process that I had to go through, which when I was called to the college back about 5 years back, I went and told all the teachers who were still alive and said, look here, so please don't misunderstand me. In my speech, I said, please don't misunderstand. I asked the questions because nobody knew my liabilities. Like from being the richest boy in South India to be the poorest boy, and then to try to survive was a difficult process. So that was the process that I had to go through, and it was in that you unfortunately had to bear these questions because for me, I had to attend the class and go back and answer a company law board or a labor discussion that I had to go to. And these were things that I thought, and I really thought that these people knew more than me. But then I knew that they only had book knowledge compared to practical.
Practical knowledge. So, sir, from where you started to Beta Group being, a conglomeration of companies now, how did that process happen? What makes you decide where to invest and how?
I think that the design to be in the food industry was something that I had. More than that, I knew that my liabilities were very big because, like I always say, the 40 crores liability in 1982 is similar to a 40,000 crores of rupees today. You
Right,
were to buy 40 crores of properties in 82, it would be valued higher than 40,000 crores today, or even 80,000 crores. So that is the equivalent rupee value of that. Those times the salaries were 250 rupees or 300 rupees for you to make a context of what people are today getting 30,000, 40,000 rupees at the same time. So that is the thing that we had to go through. So the only thing I knew is unless my company became so big that the liability looked small, I wouldn't be able to pay. Because the total asset that I had, total, which was all pledged to the bank and the bank had attached, was 3.5 crores. So whatever I did on whatever I could save and anything would have been so little that I couldn't even pay the interest, and the interest rate were already at 26%, and the interest on interest because you pay late was happened to 36%. It's not like the percentages of today. So either
right,
way, you get caught. There is nothing that you can do. Every day you don't pay, it becomes a giant kind of a thing that you cannot. So you had to go through processes to pay and keep paying. So those are the things that made me into trying to take opportunities, trying to expand into other countries, trying to reach from the plantation to the consumer so that the whole
right,
chain of things could be under our control, and wherever the money comes, it is within our company operation. Whether one division makes profit or another division makes profit, it might not really matter because once you make profit, you can actually use it
right.
very well. So that is the situation that
So,
made
sir,
me get
now
in.
you also help, startups in their projects. How does that process work? How can
We,
somebody approach you for that?
oh, we have a website, we have a whole process that we go through. But more important, I have always believed that if the CEO is good, the product doesn't need to be so.
Okay,
And the CEO can actually convert very difficult things into opportunities and offers. Most of these successful companies are not companies that have the product which is the best. It is
Okay.
an average product, correctly priced, correctly distributed, that succeeds. It is not
Right.
the best. It's not the best tea, which is the largest profitable, largest selling tea. It's a very average product that Tata actually sells. If you take a tea connoisseur into account, it is
Right.
none of it. It is not the best T-shirts that Adisha sells. They sell a very average T-shirt, but very well distributed, very well packaged thing that they do. So those are simple things that lot of people don't get in, especially startups. When people have started up on a particular product, whether it's in the IT or physical product, they kind of tend to keep working on that and imagine that the consumers will come and queue and buy it. It doesn't
Right.
happen like that. It is really a misnomer that it happens, anything similar to that. Because unless you take to the consumer, educate the consumer, they will not even know that there is a product like this. And most of the products fail only because of that. But a very average, brilliant CEO, but who is average in everything, actually understands those, and that is how he reaches out to the people. That
Right.
interpersonal skills and the quality of the CEO is what really makes a difference. And if you look at even Amazon, they started as a bookseller to
Right.
actually coming into a very different area. Today, the cloud space that they sell is the most profitable of the business that they have. But what is the
Right.
relationship of from what they started to what they have actually become? Those are interesting transitions that actually happens in companies, but where the CEO actually adapts and gets into those situations.
Right.
Most of the new companies are also having huge losses on the way, but they still are able to find the finance to finance the current losses, the cash flow problems, to reach the other side. So
Right.
that is the brilliance of a CEO. So those are the qualities that I'm actually looking forward.
Okay. So, sir, you've had, more than your share of mental pressure. The kind of pressure that, the freshers or even the students feel in today's date. What is your advice to them of, how to manage it, how to come on the other side of it and not give up?
Neha, can you tell me one of your pressures?
One of my pressures right now, I think it's finding my own direction in work.
Good. So you're actually living on an expected future.
Right.
Imagine that you want to get married. That is a pressure. But do you know the pressures of people who are already married? So
Right.
imagine the people who want to get a work, that is already pressure. But the people who have a work is under more pressure. So you
Right.
want to have a child, and people tear their hair apart once they have the child. So the problem is always that you are actually living in some other format from today.
Right.
They don't realize, they seem to be wanting that pressures as part of their life. So they want to get deeper and deeper into pressure to feel a satisfaction that they are living. That
Right.
seems to be the situation. So being happy and today and in the present, they kind of live. So if I were to live to think that I had to pay back the liabilities and everything, which anyway I couldn't have paid in a day. Unless I get into the processes, I had to sleep well every day to be able to work better, be more productive, to occupy my the spare time between things productively healthy, so that I can live another day to do the same process to pay the same thing. And if I were to take the pressure as a pressure, then I would have just collapsed. It was only a matter of time that I would have actually
Absolutely.
collapsed. So that is not the process that you can actually go through. So imagine that you want a direction in your life. The problem is that you are putting a pressure on what actually you are going to be tomorrow. So if you
Right.
can actually try to understand the easiest way to answer that, the easiest way to get a direction is to look at all the things that nature has done to you until right now. For
Right.
example, if it has given, like for me, if it has given a dad who was in business, nature has got me to learn business from when I was 14 without even me knowing. It
Right.
has put me into a situation by which my father went into a loss, and my mother thought that I had to stay back and pay the liabilities, not run away and get a work in America and look after myself for the sake of the workers and everything. So then nature has decided that I have to actually be there to look after that. So those are the informations that nature is giving you on to decide what you are supposed to do.
Right.
So then you get into that information, and then your directions become very easy. Even though it looks very difficult, but that is the position that nature, for whatever reason, has put you into. It is like a seed being taken by a bird, and the bird puts it in a far off place. The seed has no idea where it is and whatever. So it does only its work of actually growing,
Absolutely.
finding the water and everything. So imagine the seed was to think, oh, what is my direction? It would just stop. You are like a seed that has been put into a particular situation. Understand
Right.
what is the situation and just do your job and do the processes on a daily basis. Doesn't really matter because nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. You are not what you thought when you were 5, 15, or 25. All the time your
Absolutely.
aspirations, everything has actually changed and come. The thing, like even though you know the theory, it takes a lot of time for you to understand and practice it. But that is something that I practiced and it actually
Right. So, sir,
I
if I
hope it
were
has
to
helped
ask,
you.
it was absolutely helpful
Okay, good.
because a lot of things we understand on a theory level, on an intellectual level, but to be able to actually, imbibe it takes time. And
Definitely.
that's where
No,
the
but
progress
it is
starts.
good to know at the intellectual level because at some point of time you understand it if you're willing to go through. It's like losing weight. It's a process that all these youngsters go through. So then you are going through. You know the theory. When you follow the theory and then you lose weight, you understand that is a process that you have to do. But if
Right.
imagine that you know the theory and you don't follow it, you might never even understand the value of the theory.
Absolutely.
That is a process. So ultimately, losing weight is a process of not only the food, it is the tensions that you are taking. It's a huge combination of things. It is actually being nice to yourself. It is nothing to do with anything. The pressures will always come, things about beauty and everything. It's a competition almost all the time. Every time you go to a hotel, every time you go to meet your friends, everybody, the first thing that they see is they look at you and make a comment. And it all starts. When you are young, it is a question of beauty. Then when it's a question of which is the career, then it's a question of what is your marriage, and then how many children and what the children are. And you seem responsible for everything that happens
Everything.
in your whole universe, and it is illogical. I mean, you have absolute very little control. You have
Right.
not controlled where you are going to be born. You will never the things that you're so what I kind of do is to understand where am I, where is the seed, what kind of soil is it, what kind of rain am I getting, what is the nature helping me grow, which is the direction of the sun, to just to try to grow into that.
Right,
Not to compete with it. I don't try to compete on the decision on where I have been put.
right.
Most of the people kind of tend to compete on that, to say I
Yes,
shouldn't have been put there, and you are already put. You have no limbs to walk. You are
yes,
just a seed. You don't have an option to decide which is the bird which will take you to the next side, or whether the wind will flow or not. So you can only,
right,
at all points of time, you need to surrender to that information and work from it.
right,
So that is the easiest way for you to, for me, to be able to understand. So it doesn't really matter what are the pressures. I just keep on understanding it and go through it. A lot of times that things that actually blow against you, you don't understand. But
right,
trying to understand it is a problem. But to understand the information is easy. What is it actually affecting you? And what is that information telling you to do?
right.
If you decide to grow to the right, if you, for whatever information, the decision you decide to go to the right while the sun is on the left, you will only die. So you need to understand where the sun is and decide that that is the place to go. Because sun
To
is a
go.
requirement of a tree to grow. So everything just
Absolutely.
grows there. So just don't challenge that. So if the sun is there, that is the place. Even if it doesn't look good, that is the place, and that is the work that you have to do. So that will actually take a lot of pressure out of it.
Out
Not
of
to
it.
worry whether it is marriage, children. You have no control. Nobody had a control over you. My parent, unfortunately, I couldn't pay all the liabilities before my father died. But like my mother saw everything being paid and everything. But
Right.
my father was very sad that he gave me a liability and left. But by that time, I knew that there was a process that it could actually happen to be able to pay. But I was happy that there was a pressure and I was willing to work and started developing a lot of muscles to be able to fight all these.
Fight all that. So, sir, if I were to ask you for just one tip that, youngsters today should keep in mind to be able to be successful in whatever they're doing in life, what would you suggest them to, keep that one mantra in life?
Understand where they are and what
Okay.
is the information nature is giving. And everybody's information is different, including the way you look, what you have been educated to, which is the place, location that you are in. All of that is in. Keep understanding. The more information that you understand, the bigger, and then you are willing to work on it, the more successful.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing such amazing information with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neha. Best of luck. Huh?
So that was Dr. J. Rajmohan Pillai sharing with us his career journey of how he started and the circumstances that he started in. What he said that the pressure and the stress comes in only when we start comparing or aiming for the future self rather than being in the present moment, counting the blessings, counting the strengths that we have today, rather than focusing on what could be, should be in the future. If you pay attention to what you have today and how you can best use it, there is no way that you will feel that pressure in your life. I hope you learned something from this interview. If you have any questions from Dr. Pillai, do write to us in the comments below and we'll get back to you. Also, do like, share, and subscribe the channel. Thank you.